rock jazz. Well, I guess the most simple way to say is that it's kind of cliche or whatever, but I love jazz. It's what I grew up. It's what I'm compelled to do. It's something that's in me that started from birth. My father, all his millions of records, and that sound. I grew up from the sound, and it's my way of expressing myself. It's the most comfortable way of expressing myself, and that's why I rock jazz. I mean, it's great, and you get to travel, and you get to play all different types of music, and I mean, I always tell people it's the greatest job on earth. I get paid to tell people how I feel. My music matters because I feel like I have a lot to say, and I feel like I come from a different sort of place that anybody else would come from. I know that sounds kind of general. Everyone would probably say, "Oh yeah, my stuff is very different from everybody else's." But no, I really feel like I have a lot to say, and I'm kind of a shy guy, and I'm not very vocal a lot, and I'm very quiet. So the music is my way of expressing myself. The music makes me very. I talk a lot in my music. Fair to say so. I mean, we're in a generation where I'm part of the hip hop generation, and growing up in South Jamaica, Queens, looking at growing up and seeing like Tribe Called Quest and Nas and Marcus Miller and Bernard Wright and Don Blackman, all these heroes in my neighborhood. Growing up in that, and it's they always say history repeats itself, and a lot of people always go back to history and dig in the crates, and and I think that music is relevant now, and that's part of how I came about. So, I mean, and I think just by nature, I'm just a youthful guy. I love having fun, and I'm, life is too short. You just gotta laugh, you know. Well, my music has a lot to do with my upbringing. Just growing up in New York City. Grew up in a West Indian household. My mother's from Panama, my father's from Grenada. Just being around New York and Lower East Side, and rock and hip hop and South Jamaica, Queens, and yeah, growing up in South Jamaica, Queens, and my love for cars. I used to race cars, and I'm when it comes down to it, I'm a pretty simple guy. I love simple things, and it's just this is one thing I always love to do. When I write or I record a song, I always drive and play the music in the car, because I think the way to tell a good song is if you can drive with it in the car. It's because motion and music goes together. It's like that to get, you can't have one without the other. My opinion. So. It's really strange. I guess when when the band first started, we used to it started off with college students and women. That was our core audience. And since then it's broadened, because you'll have a 16-year-old kid sitting next to an 81-year-old woman, and they're both bobbing their head, and it's hilarious. I think the key of the marketing of this group is to have no marketing. As you can tell, each one of us, me, Derek, Mark, Rob, we all have individual personalities. We don't look the same at all. I dress totally different than everybody else. We everything is very, and it's and in the essence of jazz, it's a lot of improvisation. It's very spontaneous, and I think to a certain degree we don't have any marketing, and I think it works that way. Radio has let me down a lot, and I grew up in New York City as an 80s baby, like listening to the Quiet Storm and Frankie Crocker, and like the music was so eclectic. You'd hear a Pat Metheny record, and then you'd hear Quincy Jones, and then you hear Heat Wave, and then you'd hear Emerson, Lake and Palmer. You hear just a wide variety and wide spectrum of music, and it doesn't exist today. I mean, you hear, and not knocking them. I mean, the artists that are out are some of them are very, very talented, but it's like the same 5 artists you hear every day. Just 5 people on the radio. It's just like, how can that be? I mean, it's just like there's so much more out there. And I think that's what's really frustrating, is the fact that the little guy doesn't have a chance anymore, or has barely. It's such a small window, and it's a lot harder to get out there and express yourself and to be heard, As an independent artist, technology has helped, and it has sort of diminished the craft a little. It's great because now everybody can record. You don't need to go to the studio anymore. You can record in your bedroom, essentially. People record records in their house. Downfall is, people rely on technology and they get lazy. And then the craft of the actual music is lost, the actual craftsmanship. And I think my peers, the problem that they have, or we have, is the fact that you have to start making music, and especially jazz musicians. It's got to start making music for people and not for yourself. I think sometimes jazz gets too methodical and too mathematic, and I think that it loses the essence of reaching the people. You have to make music for the people. It's not just for yourself, And I think that's what's lost. And I think in the community it's lost, and it gets very scholastic, Hey, I'm Casey Benjamin, aka Stutz McGee, and I rock jazz.